Imagine waking up one morning, stepping outside, and looking up to see the sky not as the familiar blue dome stretching above, but as a magnificent arch of shimmering bands encircling the planet. If Earth had Saturn's rings, life on our planet would be dramatically different in ways both beautiful and terrifying. First, the sheer sight would be breathtaking. The rings would stretch across the heavens like enormous, luminous highways made of ice and rock. Depending on where you stood on Earth, the view would change. Near the equator, the rings would appear as colossal arcs cutting directly through the sky, spanning horizon to horizon. At higher latitudes, they would tilt and shrink, eventually becoming a thin band glowing along the horizon. Imagine every sunset painted with stripes of gold and silver, the rings reflecting sunlight and glowing softly at night like giant celestial lanterns. Nights would never truly be dark again. Cities wouldn't need nearly as much artificial lighting, because the rings would scatter sunlight and moonlight across the world, turning night skies into a glowing canvas. Astronomers, however, would struggle. Many stars and galaxies would be drowned out by the reflected brightness, robbing us of some of the universe's wonders. But the beauty of these rings comes with hidden costs. Earth's climate would change dramatically. The rings, made of billions of chunks of ice and dust, would cast immense shadows over parts of the planet. As the Earth rotated, regions under these shadows might experience cooler, darker conditions. Entire ecosystems could be altered by this shading effect. Crops might grow differently, weather patterns could shift, and some areas might become colder while others stayed warmer. Life as we know it would have had to adapt to this strange balance of light and shadow. The gravitational effects of the rings would also be significant. Although lighter than a moon, the rings still have mass. Their pull on Earth could cause subtle but important changes in tides. The moon, Earth's tidal partner, might interact with the rings in complex ways. Imagine spectacular meteor showers raining down whenever bits of the rings destabilized and entered our atmosphere, lighting the sky with fiery streaks. But there's also a danger. Larger pieces of debris could occasionally plunge toward Earth, creating catastrophic impacts. Civilizations would have developed differently under this celestial spectacle. Ancient cultures, looking up at the glowing arcs, would likely have seen them as divine symbols. The rings might have been worshipped as cosmic stairways to the gods, eternal bridges across the heavens, or barriers separating the realms of mortals from the divine. Entire mythologies and religions could have revolved around their existence. The rings would shape navigation, too. Early explorers wouldn't just navigate by the stars. They'd use the constant position of the rings in the sky as cosmic compasses. Even calendars might evolve differently, tracking ring shadows as well as lunar cycles. But for modern society, the rings would pose practical challenges. Satellites would be nearly impossible to place in certain orbits, as the dense fields of ice and rock would smash through any artificial spacecraft attempting to cross them. Space travel beyond Earth would require complex maneuvers, making missions to Mars or beyond far more dangerous. Humanity's exploration of space might be slowed or pushed in a completely different direction, toward finding safe passages through the rings. On the flip side, the rings would offer resources. Imagine mining operations that stretch into the sky, harvesting ice from the rings to use for water or fuel. Colonies could be built on massive chunks, creating floating way stations just beyond Earth's atmosphere. Entire industries could develop around maintaining, studying, exploiting this celestial treasure. Cities on Earth would also adapt to the endless glow. Architecture might evolve to block or filter the constant brightness of the rings, creating new kinds of urban design to balance between natural light and shadow. Nightlife, as we know it, might never have existed because true darkness would be a rarity. Instead of neon signs lighting up cities, entire skylines might glow under the soft halo of reflected ring light. Imagine, too, the emotional and cultural impact. Poets, artists, and dreamers would forever look up at the magnificent arcs and find inspiration. Every song, every painting, every story could be touched by the presence of this eternal spectacle. Love stories might be told under glowing skies, wars might be fought over the symbolic power of the rings, and humanity's identity itself might be deeply tied to its place under this cosmic crown. But beyond the beauty and wonder lies a sobering reality. Such a system might not last forever. Saturn's rings are slowly disintegrating, raining material down onto the planet. If Earth had rings, they too would eventually degrade, fading away over millions of years. Humanity, if it survived long enough, would watch the slow death of its most iconic celestial feature. Generations might live under brilliant glowing skies, only for future descendants to inherit darker, emptier heavens. The disappearance of the rings could trigger crises in religion, culture, and even psychology, as humanity lost the constant companion that had shaped its entire existence. And yet, despite the dangers, the shadows, and the eventual decay, one thing is certain: if Earth had Saturn's rings, life here would never be ordinary. Every child would grow up looking at the sky and knowing they lived on a world unlike any other, a planet adorned with a crown of ice and stone, a world where even the simplest glance upward would remind us of the immense beauty and strangeness of the universe we call home.